All right, guys. So this last section, you guys hear that? Your test will be next week. I know, isn't that crazy? Last section. Um, is on mortgage points. I think I briefly mentioned it kind of throughout this chapter. You can purchase points so you can pay money to drop your interest rate. Or you can do what's called negative points, where you raise your interest rate and they give you money to like cover your closing costs. Well, it depends what situation you're in. For me, when we bought our house, we didn't have enough to cover all of the closing costs because it's ridiculous. You guys saw that the other day. It's ridiculous. So we bumped our interest rate a little bit so that we didn't have to pay closing costs. So we opted for that, and we just did the math. I did the math. Imagine that, right? And it was going to work out for us, right? So you have to kind of, we'll look at that today, how you tell, like, is it a good idea or is it a bad idea? Okay, so we'll look at that today. All right, so fees paid to a lending institution for the purpose of buying down or lowering your interest rate, those are called mortgage points, but they are also known as discount points. So you can hear them kind of referred to both ways. In other words, you're trying to get a discount on your interest rate is what you're doing. And then 1% of your loan amount is the usual cost of a point. So it's not necessarily a flat cost, but it's based on what your mortgage is for. So obviously, if I'm buying a $100,000 house, points are going to cost me a lot less than if I buy a $500,000 house. So it's 1% of your loan amount. So do you buy points or do you not buy points? When is it a good idea? Like, what do you look at in order to figure that out? Which is what Santos was like, should you do it? Which one's better? Like, it just depends on your loan and your situation. But I'm going to show you how to tell. Kind of a blanket statement, though, when we're looking at this. Should you pay for mortgage points? So the first thing we're looking, though, at is you paying money to get a lower interest rate. That's what we're looking at right now. We'll look at the negative ones in a minute. If you have a longer length of a loan, let's say you have a 30-year mortgage, that's probably a good idea to do so, right? Because if you have a lower interest rate, you're going to pay less in interest over the length of that loan. It may be deductible when you do your taxes. Now, granted, they changed all the tax laws this year, so you would have to be able to deduct a whole lot in order to make this worth your while. So with the tax law changes, it's not as big of a deal. But it can definitely save you money in the long run. So if you're going to know, I'm going to stay in this house for at least the 30 years and pay it off, like I don't plan on moving, then it's probably a good idea. Now, if I know I'm going to be moving in 10 years and selling the house, then it's probably not worth it. So I would say no if it's a shorter length of loan. And can you afford to pay the extra? Right, we saw what closing costs were. They can get kind of expensive. But then this would be another upfront fee. So when you go to closing, if you're doing points, this is where you're paying for them. You got to write them a check, hand them cash. Here it is for me to pay for that. But again, it drops your interest rate. So if Elizabeth and Nicholas want to buy a new home in Sunset Park, they're going to borrow $350,000 for 15 years. Their bank offers an opportunity for them to buy down the quoted interest rate of 4.5% by 0.125% per point purchased. So every point they buy, it's going to drop that 4.5 by 0.125. Okay, so it's going to drop their rate. Each point will cost 1% of the amount borrowed. What will be the new interest rate if 2 points are purchased, and what will it cost to purchase those points? Okay, so let's figure that out. So if they're doing 2 points, kind of break this down here. So 2 points, how much of a percentage will it drop them? It's this much per point. So 2 times 0.125. We got to figure out, they're buying 2 points. So 2 times that, it's not 2.5, but 0.25%. So this is how much it's going to be dropping their interest rate. So if it was 4.5%, it's going to subtract off of that. And what's their new interest rate? It's 4.25. That would be the new rate. All right. Does that make sense? Questions on how I kind of just determine what the new rate would be? For every point they're buying, it's dropping at 0.125%. All right, so the then it also asks, what is the cost to purchase 2 points? Okay, so the cost of that, it said, is 1% of the amount borrowed. So 1% is 0.01. And how much are they borrowing? 350,000. Okay, so you just have to multiply the 1% times however much they're borrowing. So that's 3,500. But wait a minute, that's per point. How many points are they borrowing or buying? They're buying 2. So I'd have to multiply that by 2. So it's going to cost them $7,000 to drop their interest rate by what, 1/4%. Now, I went ahead and multiplied 0.01 times 350, and then I multiplied that by 2. What else could you have done? Multiply by 2%. Yeah, you could have done that. Since I knew they were buying 2, I could have just multiplied by 2%. And that would have given me the 7,000 right there. So, either way. So what do you guys think? Is $7,000 worth it to drop it 1/4%? Hold your thought on this problem. We will circle back to this problem in a little bit and talk about, is it worth it? Is it a good idea or not? Okay, so kind of hold your thought on this. We'll come back to it. So number 2, suppose Patrick wants to take out a $500,000 15-year loan. He's been quoted a 3.8% interest rate for the loan. Patrick wishes to purchase 3 points, each of which will decrease his interest by 0.125%. Each point costs 1% of the loan. Determine Patrick's cost for the points and the new interest rate. So same idea, but this time we are doing 3 points. All right, so let's talk about the interest rate first. So each point will drop his rate by 0.125%. So 3 times 0.125 is going to be 0.375% drop. So how do you figure out what the new interest rate is going to be? Just, yeah, subtract that from the original. So 3.80 minus 0.375. So the new rate is going to be 3.425%. At any point, if I'm doing something today, guys, and you're not sure what I did, please ask, okay? Because this is probably the hardest section we do. It's just got a lot of numbers and percentages, and there's just a lot going on in these problems. This is the easy part of today, what we're doing right now. This is the easy part. All right, so let's talk about the cost then. So if it's 1% for every point, I'm lazy, let's do this in one step. How many percent should I multiply by? 3%. So 0.03 times the loan amount, which was 500,000. Yeah. Did you type it in your calculator? All right, so 3% of that's going to cost him $15,000. 15 grand to drop it 0.375. Again, we will circle back to this problem to determine if it's a good idea or not. Okay. Questions though on just the beginning basic part of, can you tell me what the new rate is and how much it's going to cost? Because if we can't do that, we can't do the next parts. We good there? All right. So how do you tell if it's worthwhile or not? That's definitely the question. I can figure out what my new rate's going to be and how much it's going to cost me, but should I do it? So it's known as you got to find, first of all, your break-even point. What's it mean to break even? make all the money I spent. So let's say I bought something thinking I can sell this and make a profit, right? And I can make money off of it. And then I sell it for exactly what I paid for it. I'm kind of out no money then, right? It's kind of where I don't make any money, but I don't lose any money. So that's what we need to know, because if I know where the break-even point is, I know on one side or the other is whether I'm making money or losing money, right? So we need to find that first. So steps to find your break-even point. And this is what is on your blue paper. This is what we're going to keep referencing today as we go through it. It's on the back side. You have two different parts where it gives you step-by-step for break-even. We're looking at the first part. The second part on there is for the negative points, which we'll get to in a minute. That's where I'm getting a higher interest rate for them to give me money. But we're looking at now to lower my interest rate, not raise it. Okay. So to find the break-even point, you have to first find the monthly payment, assuming no points. So let's say I didn't buy points. What would my monthly payment be? Okay, which we've done that a million times. Then you will calculate the monthly payment with the new rate. So if I had like the one was a 4.5%, and then whatever it was 4.25%. So I need to find it with both different rates. If you're good with your calculator, you can just change a couple numbers and find it pretty fast, right? And not type the whole thing in again. All right, so this is using your monthly payment formula for both of those. Find the difference. What's that mean? Just subtract them. Yep. So in other words, you're looking at how much are you saving per month. If one interest rate I paid $1,000 and my other interest rate I paid $950, I save $50 a month, right? That's lowering my monthly payment. All right. Then you have to divide the cost of the points by your monthly savings. So how much it costs you to drop the interest rate, divide that by what you found in number 3, the monthly savings. And then that is the number of months it will take before you realize the savings. Okay? Okay, so let's go ahead and figure this out. So looking back at example 1, the first one that we did. So it's still Elizabeth and Nicholas buying the house in Sunset Park, $350,000, all the same stuff. So we already, let's save ourselves a little time here. If you look back in your notes, we already know their new rate. Let's see, let's kind of break this down. Their original rate and then the new one. So we know their original rate they gave in here was 4.5%. And then the new rate we already figured out. So 4.25? 4.25%. Right, we already figured that part out. That was the first example we did. All right, the new rate cost them how much? That cost them $7,000 in order to have that. All right, so that's just kind of pulling our info that we already found. All right, so I want to know, the question asked me to find the break-even point. So if I'm looking through step by step on my paper, I'm like finding the break-even point after buying points. So step 1, find the monthly payment assuming no points. Okay? So meaning, we're going to look at the original. Let's find the monthly payment. Monthly payment is I have to use this lovely formula. Yay. All right, so they were buying a house that was $350,000. Okay. I'll go ahead and write the formula up here. You guys can write it down, figure it out, type it in, do what you need to do here. All right, go ahead and type that in, guys. Let me know what you get for the payments. Good. So they get a monthly payment, $2,677.48 per month. Okay? So if I'm looking at my paper, that was step 1, finding the monthly payment assuming no points. Step 2, calculate the monthly payment with your discounted rate. So if you're pretty calculator savvy, all I have to do is go back in and I would change that percentage in here, right? There's 3 places I would need to change that to 0.0425. We need to find the new monthly payment. Good. $2,632.97 per month. Questions so far? Next is where if you're not real careful, you get yourself lost. All right, so we just found our monthly payments. We've used that formula a lot of times. All right, so step 3, find the difference. Okay, let's find the difference. Okay, find the difference between the two of them. What's the difference? Good. I'm just taking these 2 payments and I'm finding the difference between them. So $44.51 per month. So in other words, this is how much I am saving every single month on my payment by buying those points and dropping my interest rate. Okay? So I'm saving, over $44 a month. All right, so the question next, because I want to know the break-even points, we have to look at next step on here then, step 4, divide the cost of the points by the monthly savings, and then round that to the nearest month. Divide the cost of the points. How much did it cost me to buy my points? $7,000. So you're going to divide cost of points by the monthly savings. Or if it makes more sense to you, change that wording to the difference. If it makes more sense, you can write that on your blue paper. I'm dividing it by the difference, which is my monthly savings. So my cost was $7,000, and the difference between them, or how much I'm saving, is $44.51. So rounding to the nearest month would be how many months? 157 months. Okay, so what you found is their break-even point. How many months will it take of saving $44.51 every month before I finally kind of make up that $7,000 that I paid originally? Does that make sense? It's going to take me 157 months before I really see a savings. Because I'm just, honestly, every month, that $44.51 is just me trying to make up the difference of that $7,000 I paid up front. How long is that? 157 months? All right, so it's a little over 13 years. How long are they in this mortgage for? 15 years. All right. So the other part of this question, that was me finding the break-even point. Then they want to know how much are they actually going to save over the life of the loan. So if it took them 157 months in order to make up that $7,000, how many more months are left in their loan? 15 years is how many months? It's not hard math there, guys. 15 years is how many months?
15, let's see.
Now, guys, this is not on your blue paper, how to find this last part. So it's savings over life of loan. This is not on your blue paper, so we want to make a note of this. So first, you know what, if you want to add this on your blue paper, I'll let you add this on your blue paper. So you have space on there. Go ahead and add this. To find the savings over the life of the loan, first you need to determine how many months is your loan? For example, 15 years equals 180 months. Okay, but we have 30 years. That last homework assignment had a 20-year loan on it, I think, an 8-year loan. All right, so determine how many months is your loan. Then you will subtract your break-even point from the number of months in loan. You saw I wrote it though, right? So that will tell you how many months you still have, right, left to go. And then you will multiply that answer. I'll just draw an arrow. Multiply that answer by your monthly savings. Or in other words, that difference we found earlier. Stupid board. Yeah. You can do that. There's different ways to roughly, I mean, it's fine. It's fine. Now, your answer will vary slightly from mine because of rounding. That's okay. All right, so how many months is my loan? So let's go ahead and do this for this problem. So my loan is 15 years times 12 is 180 months. So this is not on your blue paper, guys. This is back to your notes. We're finishing off this problem. It's 180 months. How many months did it take me to hit my break even? 157. So how many months do I still have to go? 23 months. Right, so I determined how many months my loan was, subtracted my break-even point from the number of months in my loan, multiply that answer by your monthly savings, or the difference we found earlier. How much was I saving per month? $44.51. So the $1,023.73, roughly. Now, granted, I rounded the number of months, right, because it wasn't exact. But so I will save around $1,000 by paying $7,000 up front. Is it worth it? Some people may be like, no. So it's up to you. Now, granted, had this been a 30-year loan, that would make a difference, right? Because it's a longer span. So sometimes shorter loans, it's not really worth it to buy the points, but it can be. This one, if it was me, I probably wouldn't either. It's not a huge enough savings. Does that make sense, kind of step by step what we did? There's a lot. Do you see there's a lot of pieces to all this stuff? If you're on your own and you're like, oh my God, I have to use what numbers and what percentages? All right, so let's take a look then at the other. There's one on skip that next example. It's the same thing, the same scenario, but they bought 3 points instead of 2. We're not going to worry about going through that. Let's look back at example 2 that we did. What's the break-even point for Patrick, and how much will he save by buying points? Now, his was a $500,000 loan, so it was more, but it was still only 15 years. All right, so again, if you're looking through your steps on your blue paper, finding the break-even point. So first step, we need to figure out the monthly payments. Let's go ahead and jot down the info we already found, though, right? So the original rate, if you look back at what we had going on in here. Patrick's original rate was 3.80%. And his new rate we found to be 3.425. And it cost 15 grand in order for him to get that. All right, that was what we found earlier. Okay, so step by step on your blue paper, find the monthly payment assuming no points. So back at the original, we need to find the monthly rate. Let's give everyone else a chance to kind of catch up with you a little bit. So 0.038012. All right. So finding that monthly payment, Neil, what did you say? That is a large mortgage rate, or mortgage payment. All right. So that's his insane one. So then step 2, calculate the monthly payment with a discounted rate. Okay, so look at the new rate. So again, you will have to change this interest rate in 3 places. Right, just putting in that new rate, we can find our monthly payment. Oh, man. Yeah, you can always go back up and bring it back in. Anybody find the new monthly payment? Good. $3,556.03. Do you guys notice how I'm organizing my work every time on all of these too? That's on purpose. You know what I mean? Like I'm keeping like original stuff, new stuff, like it all kind of organizes together a lot nicer that way. All right, step 3, find the difference, the amount saved per month. So I need to find the difference between these two. So we just need to subtract the 2. How much are we saving? $92.50. Every month. All right, after you find the difference, step 4, divide the cost of the points by the monthly savings, or the difference, right? So the cost divided by that difference. How much did it cost me for this? 15 grand up front. Divided by 92.50. How many months will it take before I make up that 15,000? 162 months. So that is your break-even point. It will take you 162 months before you make up the 15 grand that you spent originally. How long is 162 months? You know, 13 and a half years of a 15-year mortgage. Okay. All right, so there's your break-even point, right? Let's make sure we know that that's what you just found there. Break-even point. All right, then the other part of this, though, asked me how much is it going to save me, right? Is this going to be worth it? So what would the savings be? So what is your step-by-step for that process? How many months is my loan? It's going to be 180. And then we subtract my break-even point, the months, right? Subtract 162. So how many more months do I have in my loan? 18 months. And then what do I do with that number? Multiply by that difference we found. My difference was 92.50. Okay. So $1,665. So over the span of 15 years, paying $15,000 up front will save me $1,600 bucks. And you're like, I'm with you. I don't know about that. I almost would take the higher one and then just, you're not losing money. But I almost would like take the other one, and then if I have like an extra 500 bucks here and there, I would just like throw it at my loan and pay it off earlier. You know what I mean? Kind of make up that difference. But again, you know, these are things to kind of weigh. Is it worth it or is it not worth it? All right, so questions on discount points. Do we get the concept? I am paying money to lower my interest rate. Okay? All right. Yeah, we're going to skip that next one too. All right. So then the kind of flip side of all this is negative discount points, which is what we ended up doing when we purchased our house. But it's so funny, like, when they first started talking to me about this was before I started teaching this class, and like our mortgage guy was like, oh, we have this opportunity where you don't have to pay any closing costs. I'm like, oh, that sounds great. And they're like, and you can even get money back from it. I'm like, you're going to pay me to get a mortgage? Like, how does that work? At the time, I wasn't aware of, like, this is what was going on. You know what I mean? Like, I had never seen this before, that this was an option. So, like, I learned a lot by doing it from myself. And then I go to teach this class, and I'm like, oh, yeah, like, that all makes sense now, right? Like, I get it. So hopefully, someday down the road, when you guys actually get a loan, a mortgage, you remember some of this. Like, you'd be like, oh, I remember Miss Owner talking about that. Like, there's other options out there, okay? Hopefully, you remember this stuff. All right, so negative discount points. Again, you are purchasing them. It is a way to decrease your closing cost. So what's happening is they are raising your interest rate, but they're giving you money or money towards your closing is what's happening. So that closing is still happening, those costs, but like the bank is kind of eating some of those because they're giving you a higher interest rate. Because over the length of your loan, you're going to end up paying them more. All right, so it increases your rate. Zero closing cost option, which is what we ended up doing, it requires a higher interest rate. So it's raising that rate for you. For our purposes in this class, because every bank is different, each negative discount point purchase up to 5 points increases your APR by 0.125% and yields a closing cost credit of 1% of the principal. So instead of me paying them 1% and they drop my rate, it will raise my rate and they will give me 1%. See how that's just a flip of what we were just talking about? Complete opposite of that. So do you think the steps for this is really much different? Not really. All right, so again, this is what's on your blue paper. Find your monthly payment, assuming no points. Calculate the monthly payment with your new rate, which is a higher rate. So it's exactly what we did before, just the rates change. Find the difference. Now, instead of this being a savings per month, this is how much more you will pay every month. Okay, then you're going to divide your closing cost by the extra monthly expense. Add one word to this for me, please. Divide closing cost, closing cost credit. Because is it possible that you get that 1% isn't quite enough to actually cover all of your closing costs? Yeah, it's possible. Let's say you're like, I can afford like $2,000 worth of my closing costs, but not the rest. So you might only get enough points to cover everything but the 2,000, right? So it's not always your full closing costs, but the closing cost credit, that 1% or that you're getting from each one of those when she comes back. All right, so that is the number of months it will take before you pay off your closing cost. So if you stay in the home longer than this, you will be paying extra each month, making it not a good idea to purchase those negative points. So instead of the break-even point being like anything after that is savings, now that break-even point, anything after that is I'm losing money instead of saving. So it's a complete flip of what we were just doing. But again, very similar. All right, so let's suppose Elizabeth and Nicholas from example 1, so the same $350,000 house we did earlier, they estimate their closing costs to be about $10,500, excluding the prepaid interest and the homeowner's insurance, so just that part of their closing costs. Their lender offered them the option of reducing those costs by raising their mortgage interest rate according to the following plan. How can they determine if it is worth taking the 4.87% APR in exchange for zero closing cost? So if you look at this table, it kind of breaks it down. So it's showing you the interest rates is going up by the 0.125% for every single point that they buy. Okay? So like this is kind of giving you step 1 and step 2 right off the bat. I didn't, because it's giving you their monthly payments. So if their closing costs are $10,500, that would give them 3 points they'd have to buy. They'd have to be in this line right here. They'd have to buy 3 points, and it would cost or change their mortgage payment to that. Whereas if they stuck with the original, which we had found earlier, that's what their payment should have been. So if you're looking at the blue paper, we are looking at finding the break-even point after buying negative points. So again, this is very similar steps, but you're going to find your monthly payment with no points, which is right here. Monthly payment with the new rate is right there. So the table gave it to us instead of us using the formula. Step 3, find the difference. So we can do that, right? What is the difference between them? Just subtraction, guys. Thank you. 67.56. So their mortgage payment every month will go up by $67, but they don't have to pay the $10,500 in closing costs. So I'm like, what's another $67 when I don't have to come up with $10,500 right on the start of my loan, right? Okay, well, let's figure out, is it a good idea or not? Okay, so divide the closing credit by the extra monthly expense. So how much money are they getting by buying these points? $10,500. They gave it to us right here on the table. So you take the closing credit and divide that by your difference. So again, on your paper, on step 4, when it says divide closing credit by the extra monthly expense, you could, right underneath, under extra monthly expense, write the word difference, because that's how we changed it on the last one. So we're looking at 10,500 divided by that difference I found, which was 67.56. That's a funky looking 6. What is their break-even month? 155 months. So how many months was their loan? So can I still use those same steps that we added to our blue paper to kind of figure out what that difference is? So the break-even point, normally before, anything after that was money I was saving, right? Because I took a lower rate. So now anything after that is money I'm losing. Okay, well, how much would they lose? Let's say they took them out the whole time to pay this off. They went all 15 years. So the same steps, right? The 180 minus 155. How many more months do they still have? 25. And then you'd multiply that by the difference. So how much would they end up paying if they stayed there the whole time? 1689. So it would cost them an extra $1,689 over the span of 30 years in order to not pay any closing costs. What do you think? Would it be worth it? For me, I think it would be. Especially if you're like, I don't have over $10,000 to pay in closing costs, which is kind of where we were when we bought our house. So for me, I'm like, that's really not so bad. Okay. Did we lose you? What's wrong? Just the difference between the monthly payments. Yeah, it's just the difference between them. All right, we're almost done, guys. Hang with me. I know it's a lot today. All right, number 6. Ashley is purchasing her first home. She's considering a $400,000 mortgage at 4.4% for 30 years. Her closing costs were estimated at $12,000. Her lender is offering her an opportunity to purchase negative points to cover all or part of the cost. Each negative point increases the APR by 0.125%, earns a closing cost credit of 1% of the principal. How many points does Ashley need to cover all of her closing costs? How many points? Well, let's play around with the numbers a little bit. So if we did 1%, so it'd be 1% of 400,000. What's 1% of 400,000? That's 4,000. Yeah, so if 1% gets her 4,000 and she needs 12,000, she's going to need 3 points. Three points will get her $12,000. Again, I want to make sure we're clear on the difference between the types of points, right? Just regular discount points, I would pay $12,000 and it would drop my interest rate. Negative points is they're going to give me $12,000 for me to take a higher interest rate. Okay, I want to make sure we're clear on that difference. If she bought the points, what will her new interest rate be? So what do I need to do? We multiply, right? It says that it's going to increase it by 0.125% for every point. So 3 times 0.125 is 0.375. Am I going to add or subtract that from the original rate? We're going to add it because she's getting 12,000. It's going to raise her rate. So we'll have to add that to the 4.4% that she originally had. So her new rate is 4.775%. That's her new rate. So instead of 4.4, she'll take 4.775 to not pay any closing costs. How long will it take to hit the break-even point? So again, when you're reading, you're going to have a test next week, and you read a question like that, you should be like, okay, flip to the back of your paper. Let's go ahead and go through my steps, right, for break-even point. So step 1, find the monthly payment assuming no points. Again, let's kind of break this down into our kind of 2 columns, right? We have the original rate, and we have the new rate. The original rate was 4.4%. The new rate is 4.775%. All right, so I need to find the monthly payments on the original one. How much is this house? Ooh, expensive house. 400,000. Put this into our mortgage formula. How many years is this loan? Ooh, okay. It's going to be better than that 15-year payment, right? Longer to write this formula out than anything else. All right, So did we find her monthly mortgage payment? $2,003.04. Okay. Step 2 says to find the monthly payment with your increased rate, so the higher rate we got going on over here. So again, just change your interest rate in those 3 spots, right? So $2,092.62. Questions so far before we keep going? All right, what's step 3? Yeah, minus those, right? So subtract them, find the difference. So the difference between them? 89.58. Step 4, divide the closing cost credit by the extra monthly expense, or by that difference that we found. Okay, so you need your closing credit divided by your difference. So how much money did they give me for doing this? $12,000. The difference I found was right here, 89.58. So how many months is it going to take? 134 months. Now, it's not on here asking, but I do want you guys to look at one other thing past this. So it's going to take me 134 months, which is about roughly how many years? 11-ish years. How many years does she have this loan? 30. All right, so if we're looking at, it's not really savings in this case, but like what's my extra cost here? So it's a 30-year mortgage, which is how many months? 360. Subtract off my break-even point of 134. 226 months, multiply that by the difference. If you're kind of following through that step-by-step that we added to your blue paper. Say that number again, 20,000 what? 345? Sorry, somebody coughed right when you said that. And how much cents? Ugh. So for me to not pay the $12,000 in closing cost, it's going to end up costing me over $20,000 in the long run. Is that one worth it? I'm going to say no. Now, the only thing I could maybe say to you, if you're in a spot where you're like, I can't afford the closing cost, but I don't want to spend an extra 20 grand over the course of 30 years, which is where we kind of fell with us, is we went ahead and did this, and then a couple years later, we refinanced. So I refinanced when the rates dropped, because, I mean, the rates fluctuate all the time. You just kind of watch them for a while, and then once the rates dropped, I was able to refinance into a lower interest rate, and now all that money that I was going to end up losing, I'm not losing anymore. Okay, so there is ways around it, kind of like Neil with his, I'm going to pay off this credit card with this credit card kind of thing, like loopholes to the system. I'm just saying, there's loopholes to this system too. All right, last question. Suppose Ashley purchased 2 negative points and paid the remaining portion of the closing cost up front. If she stays in the house for 18 years, was purchasing the negative points a wise decision? Now wait a minute, who's Ashley? Because they didn't give me much info here. Who's Ashley? Yeah, the previous problem, guys. Number 6, that was Ashley. Sorry, I didn't say go back to number 6. But yeah, so that's why there's not much info there. It's falling back to the problem we just did. Okay, so let's suppose she purchased only 2 points, because how many did she purchase in the last problem? She purchased 3. So that's going to change a lot of things for us. So this is where I wrote on there that closing cost credit versus the whole closing cost, because she's not paying the whole closing cost. So let's kind of go back and let's kind of work through this again. Notice this problem doesn't give me step-by-step the order to find things. The last one was kind of laid out a little nicer for you. So let's just kind of go back to the way we've always done these. You have your original rate. You have your new rate. What was her original rate? It was 4.4. Now, the new rate, I need to actually do some calculation here, because she's going to have 2 points. How much does it raise it per point? 0.125. So that's going to raise it 0.25. Good. So the 4.4 plus the 0.25, she's now going to take 4.65%. So for her to take that rate, I also need to calculate how much are they giving her for that. Right, because before we knew it was $12,000 paid for the whole thing. But this time it's 1% of the loan amount, so we're doing 2 points. So 2% of, what was the loan, 400,000? So how much of a credit are they giving her? $8,000. So how much would she pay out of pocket then for her closing costs? Only $4,000 instead of the whole 12. Okay. So now I need to figure out, is it a wise decision to do this? Yes or no? So what do I need to find first? The monthly payment. So I need to go through and find this break-even point, right? Your steps on your paper. So find the monthly payment assuming no points. Did we already know that? Yeah, we already found that in the last problem. So $2,003.04. And then, but we do need to go back. If you're, again, calculator, you could arrow back up and find your other formula that you had typed in before. You also just change your interest rate to 4.65%. $2,062.55. Thank you, Neil. Are we okay with where I'm pulling those numbers, though? I don't want to move too fast. Okay, I just changed the interest rate in that formula. All right, so that was step 1 and step 2. Step 3, find the difference. So the difference between them is 59.51. All right, so that's a big number that I have to work with quite often here. Step 4, divide the closing credit by the extra expense or by the difference. Okay, how much money did she get? 8,000. So you have your closing credit. I want to make sure notes have all this. Divided by the difference. So they're giving her 8,000 divided by my difference, which is 59.51. So 134 months. 134 months is roughly how many years? It's a little over 11 years. How long is she staying in the house? 18 years. So how much longer would she have in there? So can we figure out the math on how much she would actually end up losing? Because you see that she's going to lose money, right? Because she's staying longer than that. So if I look at that, she's staying 18 years. So 18 years is how many months? And then you would subtract 134. And then you multiply that by the difference, 59.51. 4,879.82. So, is it worth it? I mean, it's almost $4,000 or $5,000. So in my opinion, no, it is not worth it. Question asked, is it worth it? No. Now, if she was leaving in 10 years, yeah, she hasn't hit that break-even point. So she's still on the plus side then. So yeah, if she's moving out in 10 years, it's totally worth it for her. Okay, if she's anything over 11 years, it's not worth it. All right, that was a lot today, a whole lot. How are we feeling about the math? Rein in my question there a little bit. All right, so I'm going to give you guys your homework assignment. Just get some practice with this. I know it's a lot, okay?